There's an irresistible magic that draws 5 million people every year to gaze in wonder at Niagara's natural splendor. There's a fascination with waterfalls, such as Iguazu in South America, that exceeds mere measure of their size. Iguazu is 2.5 miles wide and stuns the senses with 275 curtains of water falling some 300 feet. Livingston named Victoria Falls after his queen, his measure of its supreme majesty. But to Africans, it was the smoke that thunders, a richer expression of the magnetism that draws us to the brink of the highest cataracts, like Angel Falls, and to marvel or to pit oneself against the elements, like this free-faller. Water shapes the land and sustains plants and animals. And where it gathers into falls, the story of life, older than ourselves, still goes on. For 12,000 years, since the melting of the Ice Age, water from Lake Erie has made its way relentlessly toward Niagara. Its serenity becomes ruffled by this rocky approach, the last rapids to be crossed by drifting trees, unfortunate animals, and on occasion daredevil showmen in barrels, unable to resist the challenge of this awful leap. Gravity accelerates the speed of fall until at 80 miles an hour, water and all that it carries plunges into the basin, scoured deep in the rock below. Churned into a foam of liquid and air, the white water seems to boil, and mist, like steam, billows from Niagara's cold cauldron. By the light of sun and moon, rainbows greet the reborn river. Before there was life on Earth, the world rang with the sound of waterfalls. Many landscapes were carved by water and ice before the world we know took shape. These mountain passes of Yosemite in California are long empty of the glaciers that ground their way between walls of rock. Now, waterfalls spurt from smaller side valleys, left hanging high, where the flow of ice once cut across their path. This one's known as the Bridal Veil. Thousands of years, the fall has cast spinning comets of spray into space. But one day, it will cease as it erodes backwards towards its source. Waterfalls are by nature ephemeral, though compared with our fleeting lives, they seem immortal. This fall is another legacy of Yosemite's glaciers. Some say the most spectacular cataract in North America. It plunges 1,400 feet to strike a massive ledge, and then leaps down a further 1,000 feet or so to feed the Merced River. 2,500 feet of tumbling water that seems devoid of life, an echo of that primeval world of waterfalls and rock. Scarcely inches deep, the torrent skims the flat granite bed of the creek. Between here and the river, its excitement drowns in the quiet waters of the so-called Emerald Pool, surrounded by life that has taken millions of years to evolve. In and around many waterfalls, plants and animals found a place to live that provides some degree of permanence. There's the obvious encouraging abundance of moisture, and though nourishment is meager, great diversity, and to our eyes, beauty has evolved. But the ability to survive has always been tested by the changing fortunes of the seasons.
Wild. Fighting the
rapid flow of water makes special demands on all that live here. Algae and water mosses, probably among the earliest colonizers, can cling to the smoothest rock. There's nowhere here for complex plants with roots needing anchorage, but flattened, clinging liverworts can compete for space among the thin, streamlined leaves of moss. Hanging lichen beards the trees, catching the spray that puts the polished shine of moisture on the many plants clinging to the branches. Close to a fall, every day is a rainy one, and the plants exploit the deluge, growing with luxuriant profusion. Some plants are now so reliant on this persistent mist, they're found nowhere else in the world but by waterfalls. This plant in South America is known as the scarlet waterfall flower. Sometimes called mother's tears or widow's tears, these flowers are misted by the spray from a Mexican waterfall. African flowers brighten and perfume Thompson's Falls. And in the heart of dry Arizona, a lush greenery clusters around this almost biblical spout from the desert rock. Across the world, from California to Kenya, to the north and to the south, life centers on these natural fonts. The challenge to animal life in vigorous water is simply fighting the flow. The minute larvae of black flies can withstand even this underwater gale. They can sieve out fragments of food with special filtering fans on their heads and breathe efficiently by taking in oxygen through their skin. A ring of hooks attaches each one to a mat of solidified saliva. They can loop along, using other hooks around the head. Occasionally they come unstuck, but they've already spun a safety net. From it, they can grapple back onto the mat, where they'll develop into the biting flies, notorious in the Arctic and the tropics. River limpets align their houses with the flow and can clamp tight to the rock, the soft-edged shell molding to the irregular surface. A deceptively similar lifestyle has evolved for this larval form of a beetle. Under these water pennies, as they are called, strong claws cling onto the rock. This is an armored insect, not a look-alike limpet. Insects abound along streams born of waterfalls, but usually it's their immature stages, such as this mayfly nymph, that must counter the force of water. It needs that broad body, flat limbs, and firm grip to hold the gills in the oxygen-rich current. Flatworms were long ago fashioned for a low-profile life, slinking in and out of crevices, hiding from the current while pursuing tiny shrimps, crustaceans, and water fleas, whose own colors sometimes tint the pale flesh of the flatworm after it is fed. So humid and spray-drenched is the air close to a fall, it seems to matter little to some animals whether they are in or out of the streams. A halfway house seems to suit these freshwater snails. Their streamlined shells are set in the current like sails trimmed close to the wind. There's little danger of drying up, even for a naked slug basking in African sunlight. Among dragonflies, the trusting of offspring to so brutal and mobile a stream might seem foolhardy, but there's much food for their nymphs to feed on, and there's one exceptional dragonfly designed to take the risk. It is amazing that onto these jostling, spray-drenched fronds, eggs will be laid, but only by virtue of a remarkable natural glue will they immediately stick on. Beating spray from her wings, an African torrent dragonfly has conquered this world of waterfalls. The steep slopes of falls presents a special challenge to animals that live in the swift-flowing streams and rivers swelling from these waters. Waterfalls can be obstacles rather than opportunities, but the challenge has been met by many fish and other animals seeking places upstream to breed, or just to live. The sensitive barbels extending from the tiger catfish's jaws will serve as its eyes in more turbulent water. Their real eyes are small, and sometimes only touch and taste can be relied upon to help them find their way up the river. This red-tailed catfish is just one of many kinds that live in the Amazon River. These are migrating upstream in a tributary whose origin is the high snows of the Andes. To spawn, they must reach the clear highland streams, and although they don't leap like salmon, they can climb up through quite large cataracts. It's not unusual to find frogs close to ponds, but turbulent waters present a problem. The so-called hairy frog has an answer. Its lungs are unusually small, which makes it less buoyant, so it is less likely to be swept away. The thick hairs on its skin are papillae, which increase the surface area absorbing oxygen, and this compensates for its small lungs. In addition, the bones of a couple of digits protrude through the skin and act as claws. The extra grip stops it being swept off its feet. Tadpoles of South African ghost frogs have their own way of hanging on in swift currents. The lips of their huge mouths allow a powerful suction to be exerted on the rock. But with a little sleight of tail, the tadpole can also move and climb, and so feed on algae growing on the stones. Waterfalls might seem less than welcoming to a creature home from the Atlantic to spawn, but the sea lamprey is equipped to cope. It's not a true fish. It has no scales nor covers to its gill openings. Ancestral lampreys were swimming powerfully like eels before eels and other fish evolved. Using their round mouths, they suck onto rocks to maintain their progress, and from time to time, as an anchorage to recover strength. Coming up, nights of young eels at Waterfalls is an intriguing climax to their journey across the Atlantic, making one of the most extraordinary migrations in the animal world. Each tiny elver has first overcome an ocean and now must climb, instinctively seeking the quiet pools and rivers where its kind have always lived and grown before returning to the ocean to breed and die in the far Sargasso Sea. For sheer power and determination, little rivals the majestic leaps of Atlantic salmon attempting to defy the falls. In they come, from Greenland's icy waters to Ireland's river dams. They're vulnerable in daylight, but need to see how high they must jump. Their athletic prowess invites the sinister attention of herons and other fishermen on the numerous rivers tumbling from the Irish hills. Pacific salmon face even greater foes. Glaucous-winged gulls wait for scraps from hidden encounters between fish and North American brown bears. Every year to this Alaskan fall, some 60 bears overcome their usual dislike of being close to other bears to feast on the salmon moving upstream and to show the young bears how to fish. It's not always as simple as it looks, but there's usually another fish coming, bigger than the one that got away. On the other side of the Pacific, in Southeast Asian rivers, lives this most unusual turtle. It has a long tail, and its body is more streamlined than others, so it can live in very fast-flowing water. When it pauses for breath between looking for water snails, it projects only its nostrils above the surface and takes in air. It's known as the big-headed turtle. What sets it apart from all other turtles is its ability to climb waterfalls. It's even been seen using its long, stiff tail as a prop for support at awkward moments. From mountaineering turtles to waterfalls that run uphill, or at least are blown uphill. But this rather bizarre sight is not uncommon for North Atlantic puffins, which are quite used to leaping into the wind. They ride the stiff onshore gales that frequently reverse local falls of water. In the world of birds, a waterfall is a natural opportunity for a shower. A cascade brings extra gloss to a sparkling violet-eared hummingbird. A bath refreshes a fairy bluebird, which then gets started on its essential feather care. A delightful golden heart dove will raise each wing in turn to cleanse its soft, downy underparts. Wherever there's a fly-in birdwash, the customers come flocking. This is a yellow-fronted Amazon parrot. The full treatment of oiling, sharpening beaks, preening, and ruffling may take this white-faced turacao several minutes. But a simple wash and brush up against the damp leaves seems to satisfy the chestnut-flanked white-eye. It keeps out of the heavy rain and showers of waterfalls. Close to this cataract, every day is lovely weather for ringed teal. Perhaps just as we enjoy mineral water fresh from a spring, so the teal prefer the taste of the droplets falling around them. In the early morning at Iguazu in Brazil, a black vulture basks briefly in the spray and the sun. From this waterfall, it will be able to make an earlier start on its aerial quest for food. The updraft caused by the thunderous weight of water crashing through the air will easily lift the huge bird. No need here to wait for the noonday sun to warm the air. Of all the birds whose lives have become linked with waterfalls and turbulent rivers, the torrent ducks are the most likely to excite our sense of wonder. With seemingly suicidal daring, they seek their living in the many whitewater rivers streaming from the high Andes Mountains. Each pair lays claim to a stretch of what appears to be an impossible feeding ground. They are superb swimmers. Even so, it is a strenuous pursuit catching the stonefly larvae they depend on, larvae that themselves depend upon the highly oxygenated water found only at the foot of the falls. A stout quilled tail, enormous webbed feet, slim body, and flexible bill make this a duck with a difference. They do fly if necessary, but a torrent duck is more at home on or under the water. To attract his female in this confusion of spray, the male must display his more patterned plumage. Posturing has caught her attention, but they won't be pairing on the rocks. Mating will take place afloat on the torrent, but only when she leads the way. Because they have such broad, webbed feet, maneuvering is easy. And the feet also enable each duck to perform a courting dance on the water, a prelude to a boisterous coupling. Not all animals are so well able to cope with the dangers of torrents and cataracts. 100 whistling swans were once seen to sail to their doom over Niagara. And hippopotamuses in Africa have been known to face the same predicament as this family of upland geese in South America. Though large, these youngsters are not yet able to fly, and only their mother avoids the first fall. More than a little ruffled by this adventure, they begin to gather themselves together, but they are now between two falls and probably tiring quickly. The future is uncertain. Some may reach the safety of the bank, but the fall may yet claim some lives. Even in nature, accidents happen. Wherever water flows in limestone country, this is Mexico, it carves passages and caves through the rock, mainly by dissolving calcium carbonate. The hard water that bursts forth from the caverns is saturated with minerals. The solid matter easily separates, like the chalky fur in a kettle, accumulating and growing out as lips and ledges. The travertine rock, as it's known, can shape a waterfall into many cascades. The effect can be pleasing to our eye. But more pertinently, it offers living space behind the curtain, as well as below in the plunge pools, with their complement of turtles, fish, and insects. This clear water, free of turbidity, can attract cormorants away from the faster, murkier river to try their luck. Over the years, the banks have become coated with limestone deposited by the water. It's hard and difficult to walk on. As lime from the water spray is deposited, a stone gallery of natural art is created, a true still life. Every evening, Mexican white-collared swifts come to these falls to roost. Some 25,000 of them swirl in at dusk. A few may be snatched by a peregrine falcon, but in only 12 minutes, all the swifts will have vanished into the falls. It's they that exploit the niche behind the curtain, both to roost and, in July, to nest. Of Kenya, these slender-billed chestnut-winged starlings will soon leave this woolly-necked stork alone in its roost and sleep instead down by the adjacent waterfall. For safety, they don't drop down from the tree until well after dark. These starlings nest only behind waterfalls, cool and protected sites to raise a brood in the hot, dry season. Foss King, which means king of the waterfall, is one name given to this unmistakable bird of tumbling waters of a cooler climate. Its usual name reflects its best-known action. This is the dipper. It's diving for caddisfly larvae and dragonfly nymphs. To cope with waterproofing its extra thick plumage, it has a very large oil gland. As well as short wings and powerful muscles for underwater swimming, its eyes are modified to see well under and above the surface. Its song has a pitch and character that penetrates the noisy rush of water. The distinctive white breast patch is revealed when in dispute over ownership of territory or as part of a courtship ritual. The plumage of the sexes is identical. The bobbing action is thought to conceal the bird against a moving background, though elsewhere it seems an effective attention getter. This pair has nested beside a waterfall. Another pair has nested further downstream. Each couple occupies about a mile of river. Great attention is paid to hygiene in and below the nest. This behavior is probably also in the interest of removing evidence of the nest above. Otherwise, crows might be attracted. The droppings ejected from the nest are dropped into the main drainage, and then there's time to rummage for insects again. This dipper and its mate have nested behind a waterfall. The water is an effective safety screen, but not considered essential by every dipper parent. These birds have been attracted to waterfalls and fast-flowing streams for the food readily available there. The insects, snails, worms, and so on that are themselves nourished by the constant flow of water and fine particles of their food. These meals may be minuscule, but this relentless flow keeps them coming, fattening the choice animals this gray wagtail is looking for. The wagtails are not able to walk on the bottom of the stream as the dipper does, but they do jealously guard the patch of river where they forage. They patrol it most of the day, extracting food with great economy of effort. The youngsters wait while their parents tour the circuit again. This dropping will be disposed of by a parent after the next meal is delivered. Halfway across the globe, the speedy rivers of Central America attract birds of similar habit. The food available is much the same. and the spotted sandpiper balances on the rocks while using its longer bill to probe for a meal. The manners of all these birds have been molded by the streams and waterfalls they've come to exploit. Think of a mammal shaped for life in water holes and quiet streams, and the otter would first come to mind. In grace of form and movement, it blends with the waterscape, often too well for our eyes. In the stony gorges of Africa, the rock hyrax is not immediately thought of as a waterfall animal, but it can readily live where waterfalls once were. In the early morning, they sun themselves on warm rocks that once trembled with the thunder of some past Victoria. Over thousands of years, the water cut back the rock, leaving a wide gorge in the path of its slow retreat, creating a habitat ideal for the hyrax. These falls, that today bear the name of their discoverer, Joseph Thomson, will prove a transient epitaph. The water still gnaws at the rock, the cataract imperceptibly moving upstream. Even Livingstone's Victoria will one day make a retreat. Harnessing a torrent just for fun may not be to everyone's taste for adventure, but even frozen falls are attracting a new wave of intrepid sportsmen. This is not a sudden thaw, but another time of year. Perhaps these devotees of discomfort are repelling for the sheer hell of it. And though it's hard to believe, they're going to toboggan down the rest. This may look like a pastime you could get carried away with, but hang on for greater thrills. This is the one way to see the highest waterfall in the world. It's not easy to read the guidebook at the same time, but it would tell you Angel Falls drop 3,200 feet from Devil's Mountain. There are few waterfalls in the world now that even the less intrepid can't reach and contemplate. masses of water that seem to lure us under their spell. It's a fascination that reaches worldwide. It's no longer the privilege of the Livingstons of this world. All of us, of whatever race or creed, can come to pay homage at these natural shrines. The international rituals of photography can stop the falls, catching a moment in its life and ours that will fade with us, long before Thompson's Falls or Niagara have worn away. There are few lengths or heights to which we'll not go to enhance our view of this natural wonder, greater than any we might try to build. Sometimes, as here at Niagara, nature has suffered the improvement of roads and lawns, but perhaps the pressure of 5 million visitors a year is just too much for it to be otherwise. No one here grumbles if it rains. You can't really tell if it is anyway. Wearing rain gear of yellow and blue, these pilgrims positively enjoy Niagara's particular kind of watery baptism. Once, only one boat ventured here, the Maid of the Mist. But now, 5 maids, laden with determined voyagers, flirt with the drenching clouds of the world's most popular waterfall. Among the many who come, there will be some who see here the hand of God at work. But whatever the belief, there's sheer power and glory in the coming together of water, air, energy, and life.
Tomorrow,